All right, y'all ready? Cool. 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to Hungry Hip Hop, potluck style reviews where we dish out the freshest takes on what these artists are serving up. We're looking for the spiciest bars, vibes, and production in order to expand our palettes and diversify our playlists.
Yeah, so it's Alan here, and I'm going to give you a quick little background on NAV through some quick research, kind of talking about his come up. Now, originally from Ontario, Canada, NAV first broke onto the scene with actually a co-production credit on Drake, who we reviewed last week. After that, he came back in 2016 with Myself, and that was kind of the single that really put him onto the scene. And that was really when his career took off. He signed to both XO Records and Republic Records that same year, 2016. And then followed that up strong with another self-titled mixtape, NAV, and then actually worked with Metro Boomin on Perfect Timing. Since 2016, he's followed up with his own solo albums, Reckless in 2018, Bad Habits in 2019, which brings us now to 2020 with Good Intentions, going from Bad Habits to Good Intentions, where it premiered #2 on the Billboard charts and features a lot of great features, as well as having the song Turks be one of the biggest hits going right now with Travis Scott. So what did you think about this album, Good Intentions?
Yeah, so this is Milo speaking. And to be frank, I wasn't a fan. I don't think I'm young enough to enjoy this album. Either that I'm too sober.
Why? Hey, why do you think you're not young enough? Explain that.
The way this album felt to me the entire time I was listening to it, I felt like I was at a house party with a bunch of like really young millennials and Gen Zers just wandering around listening to the background music. Like I think this is the sound of the youth today. That's what I meant. Perhaps I'm not in the cultural context to be able to really like dial in and enjoy this.
For me, I don't think I've ever listened to an album that sounded more of the same song over and over again.
Yep.
I don't know if it's his voice. I mean, I'm pretty much assuming it's his voice, but like, it's not even that he's hitting the same flow as much as his voice is doing the same melody, it seems like, on every goddamn song. And like when I think on our previous episode talking about Drake's latest project, I mentioned how I liked Nav on the Uzi tape because like his voice sounded cool on that. And he uses that same voice, but I didn't realize, I don't listen to Nav, so I didn't realize that's the only voice this dude has. And like it's just like it's the same like melody that, like, oh my god, dude, like after the first couple of songs I'm like, he's not gonna change this.
Yeah. I actually had a really similar reaction because I had originally heard him on the song Yosemite by Travis Scott on Astroworld.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really thinking in a small dose, Nav can really sound good when he's rapping.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when I'm listening to a 50-minute album and his vocal has no range going whatsoever, I feel like all of the production prowess that he really does bring on this album, I do think there are good productions and spacey vibes here, kind of just goes to waste because I'd rather just be listening to a 30-second loop of the production over and over and over. And the rapping just sounds so monotone that I'm just zoning out real quick, kind of once I get used to the cool spacey production.
Juan, what do you think?
I really like this album.
You did?
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah. So this is like I think my third album from Nav I've listened to. And I did not like the other two. So I didn't expect to like this one. But I think what changed it compared to the last two was that here Nav has very different beats compared to his last work. The beats feel a lot darker on his last work. And here they feel a lot more light and a lot more airy. And I feel like that fits his voice so much better. And I would agree with you all. He has very little range. I was wondering if he can only sing like 2 or 3 notes. And so everything is that.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like that.
But I also saw in his last projects, one of the major problems was his lyrics. He has this picture of himself. It's such an exalted picture. And here I felt like he had less of those lyrics that sounded like he was pretending to be someone else. They were still there, but it was a lot less.
Mm, gotcha. I mean, that was one of the pluses I definitely gave to this album, was that it actually had pretty good beats. He had a decent beat selection on this project. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, part of me really felt like after listening to this album that this dude's an industry plant. Like, just for the fact of he has so many big name features on this.
Mhm.
Like, so many. And it's just like, okay, he has really good features, he has really great production. Yeah, I don't know anybody who honestly talks about this dude at all or him getting love anywhere I look. And so it's kind of like, how are all these artists fucking with him? Like, well, how do all these people really like him? Like, I don't know, maybe his industry like just paid his way in. I don't know, but it was just
He did have the most streams of last week.
really.
Yeah. And a lot of that was like actual album sales. And I'm wondering who would buy a novel album. Like streaming it is one thing.
Yo, I got to get this on vinyl today.
Gosh, and Alan, you said this debuted at number 2?
Right. Yeah, it came in just a little behind a Kenny Chesney album, who is a country singer.
Oh, I thought that was Drake's album.
No,
Oh.
because Drake's also didn't premiere number 1.
That was the first time, actually, I guess, since this like intro or whatever, that he hasn't premiered number 1.
And it's a little tough to compete, I think, with country, because country has a lot of people who, I guess, speaking on stereotypes, are more likely to want to purchase a CD. But
True.
yeah. So I guess to start us off, the first song that I assume we all heard, was Turks. It was a single that was released before the album. If we want to start there, what did you guys think of the song Turks? You know, one had a Travis Scott on it. I thought it was one of the better songs on the album. No mystery to me why he would pick this song. Well, obviously it has Travis Scott on it, so it's going to be a hit no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just got to be honest, like when I hear the Travis Scott coming in with his kind of like signature production sounds and the like little wails that he does, that just gets me every time. I just love it. So coming on, like once I heard it, the song's maybe about midway through the album. When I heard Travis on this, I was like, okay, now I can take a breath. Now I know I'm going to have at least like 30 seconds of rapping that I'm liking. And I'm disappointed when an album does this, where one of my favorite songs is just the big single that has the big name. But for me, it was one of the better songs in my mind. I think there's one that I like more, but we'll get to that. And that's kind of all my thoughts. Cool production.
I think so Gunna is also on the song. And I think the three of them used basically the same flow. And I thought that was interesting because this happened a few times throughout the album where the featured artist flows the exact same way as Nav. And it really showcases how uninteresting Nav's voice is.
Sorry, is it Nav or Nav? Is it Nav?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
I think Nav sounds better, so I say Nav.
Okay, it's Nav.
On this song, Travis Scott and Gunna both sound considerably better using the same flow. Like later on, Future will have the same flow as him. Everyone who comes on basically has the same flow and rhythm throughout their verse, and it makes Nav seem really unnecessary. Like you should have just given the song to them, and it would have been just as good, if not better.
I'm sad to say, I definitely love that idea for this. I'm sorry.
I just want to know from Alan, where is this production quality that you're hearing? Because to be frank, when I look at my notes for Turks, it's lucky to have even gotten on my notes. I didn't write notes for every song, but it really didn't stand out much from the rest. So in terms of production, how did this one catch your eye? Like, how did it?
Well, it caught my eye originally just because I heard it before the album. And I think part of it is that I just see the kind of normal trap production that he's doing as a step above the kind of like Call of Duty Warzone quality rapping he does, where his bars are just really immature and self-centered.
Can you explain that metaphor?
Well, so coming up on the first track, I remember, wake up in the morning, took a shower after getting sucked. And so when I hear that as one of the first songs on your album, I'm like, wow, I'm going back to Modern Warfare 2 with this. I remember hearing that exact same type of line from XX Dark Sniper. So when I kind of want to highlight the production, it's not that necessarily it's Astro World quality in terms of an awesome trap album, but Nav as a producer, I think really, really outshines him as a rapper, but that's also not saying a lot.
Did he produce most of the tracks on this? Or no?
He has production credits on 2 songs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's like on the title website, but he has production credits on 2 songs, and he's not the main producer of those. And he's got, I think there's like 4 to 5 songwriters with him on each song. So there's like 4 to 5 producers, 4 to 5 songwriters.
This fool's an industry plant. He's an industry plant, dog. He didn't do shit for this album. I'm not gonna lie. So, listening to the song Turks, right? Positive. Here's a pro. The beat was hard. I love the beat on that song.
Yep.
But the beat was hard as hell. On another note, it kind of confirmed my previous suspicions of why the hell is Travis Scott famous. I don't get it.
Whoa,
You're crazy.
Whoa,
I'm sorry. I don't get it. Like, I truly don't get it. Like, he just sounds like a weaker Kanye, and I don't even like Kanye. Like, it's just, he doesn't do or make anything interesting to me. Like, the closest thing
Kanye?
Dude, there was literally one song I heard on a recent album. I can't remember what it was. There was a Travis Scott feature, and it just sounded like they couldn't afford a Kanye feature. So they just got Travis Scott instead. Like, he does a lot of the same vocal style. And the whole thing with like the atmospheric beats he uses, ASAP was using that back in like 2012, 2013. So I just don't get the appeal of Travis Scott.
ASAP's not on this level.
Anyways,
I agree with Juan on that.
We're not really talking about Travis Scott, so I'll let that go. But other than the beat, I just did not feel like the song was that unique. Actually, in my opinion, Gunna was the most interesting part of the song. So
I did think the like 808s sounded amazing on that song. I thought the production was really good too.
Yeah, the production was solid. And Milo, you seemed like you had really nothing about that track.
Well, no, it all just seemed the same. Like here's the note. I don't know if I'll read this. Okay, so he mentioned, I'll just say it this way. He mentioned something along the lines of being hard to replace. And I was like, this is all pretty replaceable content. As far as what I'm hearing, there are a million people who sound like this. I don't know, are you guys like production masters and I don't know about it? Like there's something I'm missing here? Because maybe there are like technical aspects of the beat that I just wasn't keying into.
I mean, you really don't like trap beats though, also, like, or you don't like beats like heavy 808s. You're much more of a boom, 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 boom. Like that's it.
Yeah, maybe I'm just gonna have to chalk this up to taste then, because this isn't even like there were a couple songs I felt had potential, and we can get to those later, but this one didn't stand out to me.
When Joey Badass drops an album, that won't be for you, bro. But we'll do that. We'll do that for you too.
Were there any other tracks that you had in mind, Alan?
Well,
to highlight.
So he's going with this whole new persona of the brown boy, and so I went in expecting a lot from the track Brown Boy, and kind of expecting like, hey, here's this. He's gonna have this anthem about maybe like making it as someone who is not from a culture that gets recognized in the rap scene a lot. But turns out what this song is a jealous Squidward type neighbor is coming out here, and he's jealous of the brown boy. You know, he sees the brown boy with all these girls and all these cars, and it's just really an anthem against the haters that he sees that live on his block. And I really, by the point that Brown Boy came up in the album, I had lost any hope of it being kind of a grand narrative song. And I'll admit there were a few times looking back that made me laugh. He has a line where the Squidward neighbor says, "I live with my parents and I hate them."
Yeah, that
made me laugh. But really, I don't know any other way to approach this song other than NAV is just being a clown on purpose, and I don't know why I was expecting to get a more like introspective, serious song. Even though he is building his new persona of the brown boy, and then also 2 or 3 days after the release of this album, he dropped another album about Brown Boy that we are not going to be reviewing on this podcast. I did not even listen to it.
Not a chance.
I tried.
But Mark, what did you think about this Brown Boy song?
All right, first of all, before I even get into that, because you just brought it up, this dude copied Lil Uzi Vert, and I just need to make sure that is vocally noted on this episode.
All right, it's going into the records. It's so stipulated.
I know, Juan, we were talking earlier, and when you first mentioned, I think it was you, Juan, or it might have been Alan that mentioned it, but
it was me.
At least, Juan, you were the one that noted that Future also did the whole thing where he dropped the album, and like the next week or two, dropped another album. Yeah, exactly. That definitely did happen, but with Lil Uzi Vert, as also mentioned to you, Uzi dropped the album, then like a week or two later, dropped the same album, just a deluxe version, and added a whole new album to the first track, so that he later just bumped up the track list. Nav did the exact same thing, literally only a month, 2 months after Uzi does it. And so I can't, like, there's no way for me to think that he's not copying Uzi. But yeah, so I'll just leave that there. Anyway, so the song, it felt very whiny to me. I would have liked more narrative concerning, like, kind of like you mentioned, Alan, like the struggles maybe of being a brown boy and getting to the spot he's at, of, maybe there not being a lot of others like him in the industry or whatever. That would have been a more unique method of doing it. But instead, it sounded like he was saying what every other rapper says in a song of like, y'all hating because I got this jewelry, y'all hating because I got these girls, y'all hating because I got whatever. Except he's now just saying, y'all hating on me with all this jewelry because I'm a brown boy. Y'all hating with me with all these cars, whatever, because I'm a brown boy. So it's the same stuff. It's just he's now adding that's because he's a brown boy, that you guys are more dissecting him than other people for it, I guess. Which I don't
think he's saying it's because he's a brown boy. I think that's just like him speaking in the third person. Like that's just how he's like the name he's given himself for the song.
Gotcha.
Well, Juan, I definitely agree with you on that. Brown boy his brownness doesn't even come into play at all. It's just the name is Brown Boy. And that's not even like a joke. There's no reference to his culture or anything.
Maybe it's just I thought it because I guess that was my point then. Maybe that's why I felt like since he kind of kept just repeating that part of the hook or whatever, but naming all these things, it didn't seem anything unique to be him being brown boy. But now that makes sense if he's not really even talking about it. Someone who I do feel kind of gave the perspective of something I am talking about is oh my God, Heems. I don't know if you know who he is. But anyways, he has a song called Flag Shopping where he talks about living in New York after 9/11 and having to go flag shopping with his family to put an American flag on their porch so that people wouldn't like do shit to their house and whatnot. And like that was talking about like a much more unique, interesting perspective of someone from the Middle East. I just thought that was like a really, really like at least that was like taking a unique perspective of your race or situation, which once again, since you all mentioned that he wasn't actually saying any of this because he was a brown boy, now that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like there was something for a song titled Brown Boy. I thought he was going to do something more unique with it.
I feel like the point is more so that the only thing that differentiates him is that he's brown. And so that's like the thing he's like holding on to.
Yeah, let's talk about that actually. Because in another song of his, he says brown boy running the game ain't what they used to. So when you say what you just said right now, for instance, are you talking about it from a Canadian perspective? Because as far as an American perspective is concerned, I feel like there are plenty of brown people in hip hop music. In fact, so much so that recent white content creators that have come onto the scene have been accused of like cultural appropriation. Iggy Azalea, Macklemore to some extent. So this brown boy identity that he's embracing to distinguish himself, or maybe I'm assuming too much about what brown boy means. Does it specifically have to mean like a certain kind of nationality?
He doesn't. I don't know how to put this in like a politically correct way, but he is Indian. So
Yes.
when he says brown, he doesn't mean like a black person. He means Indian and someone who's from like Eastern Asia.
Okay, that puts it into a better perspective then. That makes more sense.
Again, but that is how I'm reading it because he never explains it at all. So that's just what I'm assuming. And reading his bio, I found out that he is Indian, but he doesn't bother explaining it any more than that. So that's just what I think.
I think that's the only way it would make sense. Like there are a lot of like Latinx people who are already big in the hip hop world, but I haven't seen as much in terms of people from India.
Mm-mm. That was like an agreeing, not a I don't agree. Like I agree with you.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe So maybe I just was reading into it because he mentioned the brown boy or this as a brown boy so often. I don't know. It almost seems like he was not necessarily standing up, but like representing which he is. But I don't know. Once again, I just if you're gonna bring up something, then I would like you to at least discuss it creatively. And I just didn't feel like that was there. I just feel like it was just kind of noting multiple times that he's a brown boy.
I do think that this is the most thought out, like lyrically, song on this album because the way that he raps from another perspective is like the only time on this album where I hear there actually being a full concept behind a song. But I think this is the lyrically best song on the album.
No, to be real, actually, this was one of the ones I thought had potential. The beat was actually not that offensive, kind of catchy. And his singing, I would have been able to tolerate it, but for the auto-tune, actually. Like, that was just too distracting, the auto-tune. And Mark mentioned it, some repetitiveness earlier, but so that response doesn't surprise me. Like, this is one of the, if we were going to recommend any songs for the playlist at the end of this, I don't know if we are, if anyone liked it. That was one suggestion.
Okay, so we're already about 30 minutes into this podcast, so I guess we can move on to another song. And I actually wanted to talk about the song with Pop Smoke, who gets a verse posthumously. And I actually, when I think of this song, it's really indicative of the entire album, where I feel like Nav brings on a feature and it really just outshines him. I think Pop Smoke's really kind of raspy voice talking about Bugattis works amazingly on this production. And I wish that his verse had just come first, because already by the time Nav gets done through rapping, I'm already kind of in that typical Nav song mode where I'm just over it. But Pop Smoke really did a good job in maximizing the production potential on this. And yeah, I feel like he had a vibe that really meshed with the song. Juan, what did you think about it?
Well, first, here's a fun fact I learned about this song. The first verse and the first hook are the same number of words.
Ooh.
And I thought that was interesting because I was noticing how long Nav's hooks were and how short his verses felt and how long that, especially on that song, he went before Pop Smoke came in. But for that song, and I think this gets to how I felt about the song, his verse and his hook barely sounded different to me. So neither of them was particularly interesting. And I think that made, when Pop Smoke came in, it made it sound really good because I was relieved to hear something else. Pop Smoke switched it up. And his voice, I think you're right, Alan, his voice sounds so good on that beat and sounds so good after a very long-winded Nav section.
Alan, you mentioned this, so I want to kind of bring it up before I go into talking about the song specifically. And on this album, I feel like all of his features murked him. Like, I just felt like he just got so outshined by his, because this is a star-studded feature list, and he just got so outshined by all of them. I can't really think of a single feature that he really sounded better than. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of having in mind is No Debate, the second track that had Young Thug on it. I thought Young Thug just murked that track. And so, it kind of even made the album worse in a sense, for me at least, that Now every time I'm going to the next song and I know I gotta hear Nav, I'm just like, damn, I wish there was a feature on this, or if there's a feature, I can't wait till I get to the feature. But getting back specifically to the one with Pop Smoke, like, yeah, I agree with everything I want to say. Like, his deep voice sounds perfect. I just started listening to Pop Smoke recently, like within the past couple weeks. Yeah, like his deep voice mixed with heavy bass sounds amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really, I thought he gave it a great verse.
Hey, yo, Mark. So you'll probably be happy to hear this, but speaking to that song, No Debate, I do remember thinking, I can't believe I was ever happy to see Young Thug's name.
Yes,
I was like, it's like, okay.
Bro, we're going to turn you to a Young Thug fan. We're going to turn you to a Young Thug fan.
I don't know about that.
I thought the track Saint Laurent, that was the first track I heard that had a different sound than the rest of the tracks, in my opinion. What do y'all think about the track?
That was another one I highlighted as has potential. It definitely would have hit a little different if I were in my feels, a little more than tipsy at a party. Did anyone else catch the quarantine line? And it just kind of reminded me how recently the album came out. I was like, oh, snap. Like, he's writing this in quarantine. But I did like the vibe. Mark, you mentioned just now that it did kind of stand out to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first track to me that had a different vibe than the rest of the tracks, the previous 7.
Yeah.
I think
would I be correct to say it was a little more somber?
Yes, that's what I say. For me, it was like slower and more somber, which is why I was messing with it.
I felt like that song marked a transition. Most of the rest of the songs were a little bit more somber. They started touching on a little bit more like personal topics. And so that was when I thought the album started getting really good for me, besides Coast to Coast.
Well, actually, I agree with you about Coast to Coast. But the last song, Proud of Me, I went in expecting it to be the most humble track, and in a way it was. But he kind of asked this question, Proud of Me, but it's followed by all the typical NAV type bars of, are you proud of me because I'm driving this fast car? Are you proud of me because of whatever X kind of typical rapper rap thing he's doing? So I think I agree with you to a point that there is a turn here, but I wish that the album had ended kind of on that same consistency.
Yeah.
Let me, Alan, can I ask you, in the song Proud of Me, you didn't find any of the bars to be self-aware? Like, for instance, I'll just give you an example. So in those, he says, look at this drip I found, this brand I can barely pronounce, which kind of called me back to that, but I can't even pronounce nothing. Past that Versace from Kanye West, All Falls Down.
Yeah.
But in that song, Kanye West is like illustrating, like, we do all these silly things and, throw ourselves in a wealth with gleeful abandon just to make ourselves feel better. And I felt, look at this drip I found, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of had that same self-aware vibe, but I don't know. Did any of the bars in that song?
No, I see what you're getting at with comparing it to the song All Falls Down. I think in the context of All Falls Down being about like being trapped in a cycle of trying to wear designers and buying all stuff that's not going to actually help you in your life, I feel like I'm able to say, I can't even pronounce this. Why am I buying it? Whereas in this song, I'm more getting a vibe of, I can't even pronounce it, but I'm just buying it because that's how rich I am. I have enough money that I don't even have to bother learning an Italian designer name.
I like the Champion reference. I got you.
There was a song where the hook went something along the lines of, I don't take receipts because I don't want to see the price. That's scary.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a self-aware moment.
MySpace. Don't want to know what I spent. The total scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a moment where we see that Nav is at least a little bit aware of the trappings that come with the lifestyle that this album is predominantly presenting.
Well, I see what you're saying there, and maybe, well, ultimately a lot of it comes down to how we read it, and I do remember that line, but I kind of also read it in the way of, hey, I grew up with $5 being a lot, but now I'm so rich that it doesn't matter, and now I don't even worry about receipts. But given your more kind of generous reading, I feel like you convinced me that might be a little more self-aware than I was originally giving you credit for. So thank you. I do
For sure.
I do actually appreciate that I could look at it that different way.
His last album was called Bad Habits, and this one's called
Mhm.
Good Intentions. And it felt like to me the first few songs were bridging Bad Habits and Good Intentions. They sounded like something I would hear on an album called Bad Habits. The bragging, the description of the lifestyle he's living, and then somewhere I would say after Saint Laurent, it begins to reflect more of the inner inconsistency that happens between what he's living and what he wants to be. And that's the good intentions, bad habits part of it.
I was wondering if that kind of bridge existed when at the start of this, when someone mentioned the previous album was Bad Habits. Then I was like, oh, this one's called Good Intentions. Wonder if that's intentional. If you'll excuse the pun. And now that you say all that, I do think there might be merit to that idea.
And I think the first song explicitly establishes the connection to the last album. The hook brings up both good intentions and bad habits.
It's so genius, a bridge. I want to know if NAV had anything to do with it.
The Five Writers.
Wow.
Gosh.
I
don't know if a NAV album was ever meant for this kind of scrutiny, but here we are.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that's a good point.
It debuted at number 1, so shit, it better be.
But Juan, you do make me wonder though, is Milo, you actually brought this up at the beginning as well. What if this album isn't meant to just be listened to 4 times and then have 4 millennials talk about on a podcast the lyrics? I don't think it was. So I do want to say I understand that a lot of this kind of music isn't meant to be just combed through really specifically and is just more about the vibe. But there are certain times when I was like, come on, Nav, you can do a little better than this lyrically.
And so I was very confused from the beginning, Alan, when you said that how high this debuted, right? So I looked it up because I was curious. I know I'm about to sound like a hater right now, but I just need to make sure this is clarified. So, Juan, you mentioned that most of his albums were like actual album sales, which is extremely weird. And so I'm looking.
I said it. No, what I might have said that. What I meant was that it had more album sales than the number 2 album on the list that I saw.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, it had a total of 135,000 equivalent album units. 62,000 were from streaming, and 73,000 came in the form of album sales. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Usually they should be like 5%. Turns out, so he pulled the whole Astroworld and Father of Assad thing where he did merch bundles. And so last minute, kind of, he did merch bundles where if you buy a piece of merch, you get the album too. So that counts as an album sale for every piece of merch you buy.
We'll do it.
Billboard reports that he had as many as 100 different available bundles tied to this latest album. And apparently he was projected to be in number 2, but he ended up landing number 1 because his merch album bundle sales greatly exceeded expectations. And so, in my opinion, this dude had more like a true 70,000 album sales, not 135,000. So I feel like just calling this a number 1 album it just doesn't feel authentic. I'm sorry. But neither is Astroworld, so.
Can we show a little more respect to Astroworld? I don't want to derail too much, but
sorry.
I am not happy right
now. What any other standouts on this album before we wrap this up?
I have a favorite bar from the song "My Business."
Okay.
I ordered cheese, extra guac. I'm part of the money making committee. I don't know what that means, but it just felt like he just ordered.
But cheese is money. I know guap is money. If he was doing a play on that, and so both of those are money.
All right. I don't think that's what it is.
Are we genius right now? Are we genius.com?
Oh, okay. It's really dumb. I don't know what a money making committee is, but I just thought it was like really clear that he just dialed it. Like this was all done in quarantine, so I know he just hit that Uber Eats up. Chipotle came and he saw, Uber Eats is like $30 if I get guacamole and get it delivered. I must be on the money making committee. So in that way, I feel like that bar is just real.
Money making committee's the new D12. No, Juan, I definitely agree. Status with Lil Uzi. So, what seems to be they just did a verse swap. Nav gave Uzi a verse. Uzi's giving Nav a verse. I thought, I mean, like I mentioned on the other ones, Uzi way outshined him. But I thought it was a good, pretty decent track.
No.
I loved the hook. The hook was the best hook on the album.
Was that the one that was like sucking on the cock?
That was the one, yeah. That's
Yes.
not the hook, though. That's not the hook.
Oh, okay.
That verse is the worst verse on the album, and it's so sad to me that in order to hear the best hook on the album, I have to hear that verse.
Okay.
There's no coming back. There's just certain critical fails. And when you say how much money you got, I told her a lot. Skip. I mean, I didn't skip it. I listened to the whole song. But if it weren't for this podcast, that's like a critical fail. Turn around, go back to the DMV. The test is over.
So out of songs that we haven't covered, I will say, if we want to talk about either one of these two, Recap and Overdose were my other two favorites.
Oh, Recap.
Okay, so I was going to ask if anyone saw any potential in Overdose. So the thing was, it had potential to me. It was just the same shortcomings that are kind of problematic throughout the whole album as the auto-tune. And I wasn't too keyed into the beat. It was uninspiring. And the lyrics themselves. So that's another problem I have with the song MySpace. So he'll have these lyrics that they're sentimental and you can tell they're heartfelt, but they're so on the nose. It's like a straight to TV film, if that makes sense.
There's no subtlety.
There's no subtlety. And that's why I just said the song has potential. Like I didn't.
No, I totally agree. I definitely preferred the vibe, than the beat. I enjoyed the beat, and I thought the hook was great. I thought it was interesting him talking about selling weed on foot, and that whole thing, and somebody from his hood being either shot or taken to jail. I wasn't sure what the line meant. But once again, I think you're right. I think he could have said this in a way that wasn't so matter of fact, and it would have been a lot more powerful. There's not really any poetic power to anything he's saying on the more heartfelt songs. It's just him saying it and thinking that's enough for the people to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mark,
Recap.
Alan? Oh.
Right. So Recap, I wanted to say that I've heard this guy, Don Toliver, on a few songs across a few different albums.
He came out from Jack Boys, right? That's
yeah,
where
he
you
was
found?
on Jack Boys and had one of my favorite songs on Jack Boys. And I really feel like he just is an up-and-coming R&B singer who kind of has a higher, almost falsetto voice that I really like. I didn't know until looking up a little after that Andre 3000 was actually on this.
Oh, I did not notice that.
On, at least according to azlyrics.com, Andre 3000 is on this. He's pretty, I would think he has a distinctive enough voice that I would notice it, but I did not.
I have no clue what part he's on.
He's on the intro with Dawn, not at any time that Nav is rapping. But one thing that I really did appreciate about this song was that where I feel with, for example, Pop Smoke on his verse, his voice just feels so much deeper that Nav just sounds just ridiculous compared to it. I feel like Don Toliver coming in with a little bit of a higher voice made it so the transition between the two worked a little more smoothly to me. I don't know if maybe the key is a little makes a little more sense, but kind of the way the voices didn't contrast as much worked good. And really, I feel like this is the kind of song that Nav is going to be in his element the most with, which is going to be a little slower tempo, and it's just not going to be so. Well, okay, I disagree. You guys mentioned earlier that Brown Boy was one of your favorite tracks. It was one of my least favorite tracks, and slowing down a little bit and talking about a story like on this song Recap here, where he's talking about meeting a girl and how she had to kind of grow up on the streets and earn her stripes a little bit, was a much more genuine song to me. And maybe I don't know, a lot of it probably does have to do with the fact that I really liked Don Toliver's feature.
Yeah.
But this was definitely my favorite song on the album. And I wish that Nav could go a little more in this direction in the future. Mark, did you have any thoughts about Recap?
Not necessarily. Yeah, I thought lyrics were a little bit better on this, but his his voice, like I said, at a certain point, like not even midway, maybe like a quarter through the album, it just kind of started droning out for me. It was kind of, I don't want to say like struggle necessarily to get through the songs. Like it's actually a very easily listenable album, but nothing starts to stand out after a while. It's just almost trance like his voice. And so not really.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. There was one point. What song was it? I can't remember what 2 songs it was, but I had to like replay them because I realized I didn't know where one had stopped and one had began and what I was listening to for it to be distinct enough. So I definitely can vibe with the whole it started to mesh together.
Like what truly actually distincts the songs is the features, in my opinion. That's what I know when I'm on a different song. It's when I hear a different feature.
I feel like compared to last week, going through this podcast, we all kind of had trouble recalling a lot of specific lyrics and stuff that happened on this album. And I just think that speaks to NAV is not the strongest lyricist, even compared to half-assed Drake.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that might change in the future. Maybe Nav finds it, but I do, looking forward, want from Nav to be more production focused. Like, you can do 95 more songs with Young Thug, and that's just going to work out a lot better in my mind.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this project?
No, I think we covered just about everything. I'm spent.
Favorite songs?
Do we want to add anything to the playlist? Is it worthy?
I do.
I think we have to.
Let's see. Yeah, we have to give everyone a sampler. So
I feel like I have to pick a song I actually like. In which case, I will go with the Don Toliver song.
Recap.
Yeah, we'll go with Recap for my vote of the one song I feel like I may potentially revisit in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Brown Boy.
For me, it's either Saint Laurent or Status. I almost want to pick Status just because I was Uzi on it, but I did like the feel of Saint Laurent a lot, so I'll go with Saint Laurent. Might as well.
And I will go with Saint Laurent and Recap.
All right, so Saint Laurent and Recap are added.
Let's do it.
Perfect. So speaking of us not really focusing a ton on the lyrics, or at least being able to remember them, because we haven't really been reviewing super lyricists lately. I haven't listened to our next artist, but he seems like somebody that would be a lyricist. Anybody want to mention that? Talk about that?
Polo G.
Woo-woo.
New album, The Goat, coming out in a couple days. And I don't have any of us heard any Polo G before.
It's already out, right?
It's out.
Yeah.
It's out, so we will be listening to it in the next couple days.
I've never even heard a song with a verse from him, but every time I'm searching for a song for one of my favorite artists, there happens to be a music video where they have a feature from Polo G. And every time I'm listening to my favorite YouTube hip hop commentators, they have videos reacting and loving Polo G. And so I don't even know how I've avoided actually listening to him for this long, to be honest. But I see his name damn near everywhere, and I see literally nothing but good things. I haven't heard a bad thing about him.
After this, I'm excited to do anything else.
Damn. Well,
I haven't heard of Polo G at all. I've only heard the name and Apollo G. That's the closest I've heard. That was A.
That was good. Wow.
Given the lyrical content that we've been discussing, I would say that was at least fire sauce from Taco Bell.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll have to see what you think on the next episode. But before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
NAV's underrated.
Probably not going to listen again.
Yeah, this gets oh, well, we didn't put so a new thing we will be doing for you all listeners is at the end of every album we're gonna give kind of our own, not a rating scale necessarily, but just was it not spicy at all, a little spicy, spicy, or very spicy? Just one of those 4 options. For me, this is not spicy at all.
This is ketchup.
This is spicy.
This is oatmeal.
Oatmeal, ketchup, not spicy, spicy. All right. Awesome. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoyed. Post free to like, repost, comment, whatever. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you all next episode.
Hello, G.
Hello, G.
Hello, G.
Later, guys.
Deuces.
Bye.
Damn, Alan actually.
All right, he just left. Okay.
All right,
I'll stop
everyone.
recording.
Wait, somebody text him.